Sarah, do you know what month it is?
Isn't it Asian Pacific American Heritage Month?
Consider this conversation ignited.
Ksh, ksh.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Ignite. My name is Aaron Patterson, and I am a sophomore out of the School of Journalism and Communication.
Hey guys, my name is Sarah Manuel, and I am also a sophomore out of the School of Journalism and Communication.
As promised in several episodes before this one, today we'll be talking about what has been going on in the Asian community. But before we get into that, I have a little bit of a special announcement. We will not be we. It will be Sarah and a different guest, and she's written Lucky You. So lucky you, audience. That's in the teleprompter. You really wrote Lucky You.
No, I didn't. Okay, let's go to Cass on the Street.
Okay, and what have you heard about the hashtag Stop the Asian Hate movement?
It was largely in response to the shooting at the Gold Spa and the other spas in Atlanta, but I feel like especially during the COVID pandemic, racism towards Asians has been personified even before the shooting though.
Oh, yeah. So it's been about how so many Asians are being targeted and stuff, and how it's not fair that they're being treated like that as second-class citizens.
I've heard a lot about it. I've seen a lot of posts on social media. Honestly, it hasn't had as much coverage as the Black Lives Matter movements and stuff like that, at least in my opinion. I think it's kind of come in waves, right? First it was the Black Lives Matter movement, now it's the Stop Asian Hate movement. It's pretty shocking, all the stuff that's happening.
So I know that in the recent times there's been a lot of hate and violence towards Asians, Asian Americans, and Asians in general, and I think that the Stop Asian Hate movement, I think it's good. I think it's good to bring awareness that, stop violence. But then at the same time, I also can't help but feel it's kind of a trend too, where people are just jumping on a bandwagon, because if people really cared, then they'd be putting that sort of thing out, I feel like it's somewhat similar to the Black Lives Matter movement, where people are just jumping onto it. I just wish that, if awareness is brought, people actually, care about it,
So how do you feel personally about the hate crimes that have been happening and on the rise the past few weeks?
I feel hurt. I feel kind of betrayed, especially no hate on Black Lives Matter. We emphasized so much over the past summer about that, and now I'm happy it's growing. I'm happy that it's now getting recognition, but I feel like people are still not taking us seriously because, stereotypically we're just known as timid, or we just let it be. But yeah, it's kind of upsetting.
My family from Michigan has definitely been urging me to be careful, never go anywhere alone. It's kind of scary because I am I'm full Korean. I'm not half I'm not white passing. So I felt targeted a few times in areas around Southern, just being followed or in stores and asked questions that other people, white people, weren't being asked. And so, yeah, it's definitely uncomfortable sometimes living down here in the South with all of the hate crimes going around so close to home in Atlanta.
Gotcha.
I feel like it's actually a very sad situation right now, especially, as I said before, the elderly, especially the elderly women getting, treated badly. It's an unfortunate situation.
Southern as a university hasn't put out any statement on Stop the Asian Hate movement. How does that make you feel?
Oh, they haven't? Oh, that's a big rip. Shoot. That's insensitive. Consider we're the most diverse school in the South. It's kind of ironic. Yeah.
Just how Southern is as an institution, I don't know if it'll always be in their best interest to take stances on things like that. Even though this is a pretty cut and dry thing, where it's yeah, they should say, people who are getting attacked because of their ethnicity is very wrong. I still am not surprised by how long it took Southern's administration last time with the Black Lives Matter thing.
I'm not really sure. I would rather see action people taking action to like combat this. I care more about that than like a formal statement. I feel like actions are more important than words.
Personally, I'm not angry because it's not like I think Southern hates our race. It would be nice if they put a few things out there, but I'm not mad that they're not doing it, you know? Like, it's not like they don't care.
Wow, that was a really well put together video that Cass did. Someone mentioned that it's surprising or it's ironic that Southern hasn't yet come out with a statement since we are the most diverse university in the South. So I thought that was interesting. Anyways, we're gonna talk about it. But first, who are you?
Hi, I'm Kenneth Bautista. I'm Indonesian, Filipino, American, and I'm a business management major.
Nice. So I recently heard that you were on one of the panels for the critical thinking. What was it called?
Yeah, so it was a panel called the Model Minority.
Okay.
And we talked kind of about the school about how Asian Americans are called the model minority and why that hurts everyone.
Okay. Could you tell us like a little bit of what was talked about or discussed and stuff?
Yeah. So to really understand the model minority, we need to look back at the history of that saying. So it all started in the 1800s when floods of Chinese people were coming to the U.S. because they were cheap labor. So people would pay them cents on the dollar to work. And once Americans realized, man, they were taking all of our jobs, especially the lower paying jobs, they signed something called the Chinese Exclusion Act, which essentially just banned all Asians from coming to the U.S.
It's kind of terrible.
Kind of terrible, right? And there was riots against Filipinos. There was also the Japanese internment camps during World War II, where they kind of just put them in a box and said, like, you have to sell everything that you own in 48 hours, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But it's not talked about often. And so the term model minority and Asians are smart originated from a Time magazine article entitled American Success Story, Japanese Style. And so it went into how after all this suppression, the Japanese were doing well for themselves. And in reality, it wasn't to uplift the Japanese people, it wasn't to uplift Asian Americans, it was to compare our minority group to Hispanic people, to black people, and say, look at this, these Asians can do this, look what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
You know, so in a sense, that demoralizes not just us, but everyone else. And so it hurts ourselves, especially because it takes away from individual success and blames it on the race.
Yeah. So I was reading the paper that came out, The Accent, and it's pretty cool because the newspaper was actually based around Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month, which is in April, I believe. And so he was saying, like, the Asian culture, like, we're all humans. We're not, just because some of us are good at math. I personally am not. You are, but I'm not. Anyways, like, you're not going to say the entire human race is good at math just because a certain amount is, but that's what's happening, like, with us, you know?
Exactly.
So another thing, have you or your parents or anyone you know ever experienced like racism?
Yeah.
Okay, tell.
So yeah, here's the tea. So I want to start on why we're known as smart. So after that Chinese Exclusion Act, there was an Immigration Act in the 1900s towards the end, where they started allowing Asians to come to the United States, but they mainly brought around Asian professionals. So this is true in how my family came to the U.S., where my grandpa from my mom's side was a principal, my grandma from my mom's side was a business owner, my grandma from my dad's side was wealthy, and my grandpa from my dad's side was a businessman. So they're already established professionals in their field. And so bringing like professionals and their kids, they're more educated to start with.
Yeah.
And so that like Asians are smarter than everyone else isn't true because we're mainly taking the best part, right? The more educated people to the U.S. And so when it comes to racism, right, my parents, my mom especially, when she came to the U.S., she was in the 3rd grade.
Aww.
And she didn't know anything except for yes and no.
That's tough.
And in the classrooms, I was talking to her this morning, they would make fun of her, they call her Ching Chong and stuff like that because they didn't know anyone, they didn't know any Indonesians. All they knew was just Chinese or Japanese people. And so that was really tough on her initially.
Yeah. Because me and my family were missionaries, right? So this racism isn't just excluded to America. So we lived in Guyana, South America for a bit, and we'd walk down the street and we'd get a lot of Chinese girls, or me and my sister, or like ching chong, and I was like, I was like 10, but then I was like, that's not right, but okay. I was talking to my mom earlier last night, and she was telling me, I asked her, have you experienced any, forms of racism? And it's actually a funny story. Well, not really, it's kind of sad. But so when my mom got remarried, she and my stepdad went to the DMV to get their marriage license. And so the lady at the counter, she looks at my mom and she goes, do you speak English? And my mom was like, yeah. And she's like, oh, okay. Do you have a green card? How long have you been in America? And then my mom was like, excuse me, because I guess she thought it was weird because my stepdad is white. And also, it's pretty sad, but they used to live in Tennessee, but whenever they'd be in Walmart or like walking down the street, my mom told me that my stepdad would get like ugly looks from people.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, I did not know that, and I was like, where are these people? I'm just gonna throw some hands. No, but now that they're up in Michigan, they said it's gotten a little bit better, and I was actually talking to my roommate, Lauren, your girlfriend. And she was like, oh, like, why do you think that is? And I was like, well, there's just a lot more Asians, like, up in Michigan, and where I lived, we're like the only Asian family there, so it might have seemed like a little strange. So that was a little like mind-boggling that people could have been giving me certain looks when I was like walking down the street because of how I look, because I never really thought about that before. Oh, and another thing, my mom was saying how like my stepdad is super cautious now that all of this is going on, because he's scared for my mom's safety, and I am too.
Rightfully so.
No, yeah, it's terrifying. And so he's just super cautious. He's like, don't go anywhere alone. Like, if we're out, like, you're sticking by my side and stuff, which is good. I'm happy for that, because she needs to be protected. She's shorter than me, so it's a little bit scary. But yeah, so when all of this started going on, like, what was the thought process that you had in your head, like, when you saw like the news and like all of these anti-Asian hate crimes going around?
Yeah. To be honest, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised both ways. I wasn't surprised that this was happening, and I wasn't surprised that there wasn't much talk about it, especially in the Asian communities initially. Even at Southern, right? We talked about that. They talked about that. They didn't talk about it. See, I feel like in our Asian culture, right? We came here. Like our parents maybe had stuff going on in Asia, and when they came here, they were like visitors, or they were like new. This wasn't their land, and so I feel like as us being third culture kids, right? We're American, but we're Asian at the same time. Where do we belong? And so I feel like our parents didn't really speak up. Our grandparents didn't speak up. And so now is our time to speak up and say, listen, something's wrong. There's 23 million Asian Americans in the US. They make up 50% of Silicon Valley and 20% of the hospitals. I remember when I was going through treatment, I was at hospitals, and I mean, like, come on, there's a Filipino nurse everywhere you go, right?
That is very true.
And so they're essential workers, right? There we go. My girlfriend's gonna be a nurse.
That is true.
They're such a big part, but often silenced.
Yeah, because I feel like they were like, oh, because have you heard like, oh, just be grateful, like you're here, stuff like that.
Right.
So that's a big thing. Right. Like, just stay quiet, know your place, because I don't know. I feel like that's where the silence comes from. So is there anything else that you would like to say or like address our viewers in any way?
Yeah, I think that number one, if you are Asian American and you see someone attacking you, speak up, say something. Let them know that that's not okay. It's simple. You could just say, hey man, I'm not comfortable with that. I don't like those jokes and those sayings being said around me. And if you're not Asian American, make sure that other people around you don't fall into those same traps of making funny jokes, and speak up when something wrong happens.
Yeah, I think speaking out about these kind of issues is really important, and I've seen a lot of my peers doing it, so it's really encouraging. But yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and about this really important topic.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure being on the show.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much for tuning in and watching today's episode. This is a really important conversation, and it's one that has been pulling on our hearts heavily over here at Ignite. I'd also like to take this time to thank Kenneth Bautista really quickly for coming in. It was awesome to have him here.
It was really nice talking to him. But you viewers, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and follow us on YouTube as well as Instagram, because next week we're going to have a part 3 of Difficult Spiritual Questions with who?
Pastor Dave Ferguson
Yes,
from over
sir.
across the street at the University Church.
Yeah, so we'll see you then. Bye.
Awesome.